My father was a gooner, and one day my mother deleted his Sarah J folder so she could download a job application for him. He didn't like that. Not one bit. All right. I don't know why I did that, but it is Monday, May 26th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live with a story, a nice dark story. For it's right now at least, it's looking like England out there. It's incredibly gray. The other day I spent the night at my friend's house, and as me and my other friend were walking out to our cars, it was I understood why people in England tried to colonize the rest of the world, and then when they eventually failed at that, just kind of completely gave up on their country because it was so gray outside that like the things you were looking at also became gray, right? It wasn't just like the sky and like the I don't know, the light shining, I don't know. It wasn't just the clouds and shit. Everything was gray. It was one of the most depressing scenes I've ever seen in my entire life, and it really, for the first time in my entire life, made me feel empathy towards the British. Because before that, it's like, I don't really give a shit. I don't really give. Oh, you're being ethnically replaced in your own country. Yeah, that one's kind of on you. You guys kind of like fucked up the rest of the world, and you're like, why is it not happening to us? It's like, yeah, because it's just what people are gonna do. If you fuck people, right? Like they fucked India, Pakistan combined have 1.5 billion people in them, and they spent 400 years. I don't know how long. Some nerd's gonna come and be like, actually, it was only shut up. I don't care. They spent hundreds of years long dicking them, dicking two incredibly populous countries. And now I'm not saying they deserve it because obviously the people there now aren't the ones that did it, but like there's going to be a little bit of a grudge there, and the Indians and the Pakistanis are going to be like, yeah, we don't really give a shit. Same with the Ugandans and the Kenyans and literally every other place they colonized, which is a nice segue into today's topic, today's episode. We're talking about the book Heart of Darkness. It's a nice short little book. I listened to the audio version of it because it's in the public domain, and I'll leave a link down to that below because it's really good to listen to. It's not you can kind of it's not fully background music, but like you don't need to be like intently listening to it, like taking notes with like a with like a quill pen or whatever. You can kind of just listen to it. I was listening to it while I was doing some work for my dad, and so I think if my dumb ass can do it, listen to it while working and like kind of understand it. There were some parts where I was like, wait, I had to like skip back and go back and re-listen to it because I wasn't paying that much attention. But like, I don't know if you're just chilling and even working, as long as the work isn't that intense and you're listening to it, it's going to be pretty good. And so it is Heart of Darkness. And this is, by the way, what Apocalypse Now is based on, which is probably one of my favorite movies of all fucking time. And so I'm going to try to like draw the comparisons where I can between the two. Uh, the name, there's there's really only one name that has a good comparison. Some of the plot points have some good comparisons, but they're different, right? Because if you don't know, Apocalypse Now takes place in the Vietnam War, and a little spoiler for this isn't like in the midst of any war. It's in the midst of a colonization event, or I guess they were already kind of colonized. We'll get into it a little bit. They weren't the natives in this country weren't putting up a great struggle against their colonizers anymore at this point. A little bit of a struggle, but not too much anymore. So we're gonna start off, all right? Speaking of Britain too, 5 men are in a boat in the mouth of the Thames in England. And the Thames, if you don't know, is like the major river in England. It's the river that runs through London. I'm sure there's a bunch of other like towns and cities on there, but the River Thames, it's like most people have heard of it. It's pretty famous. And so they're on there, they're on their little boat, and it's just like it's not like a sailing boat or like they're not going to colonize Africa, basically. It's like a pleasure boat, is what they call it. One man sits meditatively, and it's noted that he doesn't have the same mannerisms slash desires that the other sailors have. It's it says that he doesn't really have like the wanderlust or like the kind of not detachment, but like the I guess the wanderlust that other sailors have. He's just kind of like weird, in terms of sailors. And sailors are it's a weird group of individuals. They're butt fucking, but it's not gay at the same time. It's kind of like prison gay. They're weird, but this guy I guess is especially weird among them. And the men talk. They're just talking about shit, and they're talking about how the Romans conquered Britain and like all the sailors that left to do the same from this river, right? Because it's the main river goes to England or London and all that shit. And so they're talking about how the Romans came here and conquered like the savages that lived here, and they're talking about all the people that, like, once Britain became its own thing, went and did the same thing to literally everywhere else in the world. Like I was saying, India, Pakistan, the Americas. The, Britain even had colonies in like South and Central America and shit like that. And so they're talking about that. And this talk reminds the meditative man, whose name is Marlow, of his time as a freshwater sailor. So, yeah, he's not just a man of the sea. He's a man of the river, the pond, the stream, the puddle. He's a man of any body of water. He's gonna put a boat in that thing and see what the fuck is going on. And so, from basically now on, there's a few points where like the people on the boat interrupt the story, but basically from now on, this is Marlow telling his story of when he went to Africa. So he had been fascinated by the blank spaces on maps from the time he was young. He would like it says he would like see like the maps in the shop window and see the blank spaces and be like, what the fuck is going on in there? And at this point, you got to remember, like, Africa, Australia, maybe not Australia. This is the 1890s, by the way. These places are basically like fucking space. Even now, like Congo, the inner Congo and like the inner Amazon rainforest are still kind of like space to us. Even like islands like Papua New Guinea, even some places there are pretty alien to us even now. We don't know exactly what the fuck is going on up there, even with satellites, right? Because like these super forested places, like a desert, even if parts of a desert are like unreachable, you can use a satellite and tell what the fuck is going on in there. But if it's covered by trees, you can't really tell. And so, fucking, this is the 1890s or the 1880s or 1890s. When he's telling the story, like the time and when like these guys are on this boat in the River Thames is the 1890s. But I got to imagine this is a few years before that. And so he's like, I fucking love the blank spaces on maps. I want to know what the fuck is going on there. And so after 6 years in Asia, Marlow wants to go to one of the few blank spaces still on the map. And the blank space still on the map is the Congo, specifically like the inner part of the Congo. And so he kind of talks a little bit about how like slowly over the years he watched like those blank spaces slowly like get filled in with like rivers and mountains and shit like that, and like because people knew what the fuck was going on there now. And so he's like, all right, I gotta do this before it's done. You know what I mean? I gotta take my chance. You know, it's like going to space now. It's like in a few years, space is just gonna be like a fucking Buc-ee's. It's just gonna be a floating Buc-ee's in space. And so he's basically what, Katy Perry. He's like the Katy Perry of his day. That is kind of the equivalent. It's a little less extreme, but it is kind of the equivalent, as we'll find out. And as we'll find out right now. So through his aunt, Marlow gets a job as a steamboat captain on a ship whose previous captain was killed by natives. And so this is a pretty funny story. Even when you're listening to it, it's like old-timey talk. It's a little dramatic, but even when you're listening to it, it's still pretty funny. Oh, and also if you listen to it, be forewarned, this is an English guy in the 1890s going to Africa. So and I'm not gonna say the big word he says. He does say the big word quite frequently. He doesn't for like the first half of the story. He never really says it. And then for the second half, I don't know. What's the author's name? Joseph Conrad. Joseph Conrad is the guy who wrote this book. I guess he was just really feeling himself because he just started saying it a whole lot, like every other word. And I was listening to this lady. She wasn't a black lady. I think she was white. She might have been like Indian, but like a slightly overweight white lady is what I imagine who was reading this story. she had no problem saying it. In fairness to her, it's this book. A lot of people criticize it for being, racist or like colonialist or imperialist or whatever. We'll get into the themes a little later as I go on with the story. It's the exact opposite. It's just he says a word that people don't like, and so everyone freaks out about it. But anyway, so the previous captain was killed, and this is it's a pretty funny story. He was killed by the son of a chief after he struck this chief during a fight about chickens. There was like these chickens that I guess they both wanted, and he was like, "These are my chickens. Listen here, you brute. These are my chickens." And he like probably slapped the guy in the face with like a limp wrist or something. And then the chief's son, he was like, "Fuck that," and he killed the guy. He stabbed him to death or something, and they just left the body there. The tribe abandoned the village where the captain was killed, and no one knew what became of the chickens. And this kind of intertwines with like the theme of how imperialism is kind of fucking stupid, right? Like that's kind of the whole point of this book. It's about moral ambiguity and how colonialism is kind of fucking stupid. And so you can kind of see how they would adopt this into a Vietnam War movie, right? Because it's like the whole, especially because this was like right after Apocalypse Now came out, right after the Vietnam War ended, and so it was still people were like, no, fuck that. Nowadays, people are a little more like, yeah, that was kind of fucking sick that we did that, dude. We just went into the jungle and started mowing people down. But you can kind of see how this was adopted into a Vietnam thing, and so yeah, no one really know what became of the chickens. It was just two dudes fighting over nonsense, and that's what Joseph Conrad viewed colonialism slash imperialism as. And during this time, either the 1880s or the 1890s, the Congo was ruled very brutally. Anyone that knows the history of the Congo, anything about it, knows how brutally it was ruled. It was ruled by King Leopold II of Belgium. And I'll just they they used they were in the Congo for mining and ivory mostly. And there was this thing they would do if you didn't bring them enough gold or ivory or whatever the fuck, and they would do this to like the native slaves that they had there. I'm sure they weren't technically slaves, but they they were they were treating them worse than they treated slaves in America, which is it's saying a fair bit. These were probably some of the worst treated people ever in the history of the world. If you didn't bring them enough ivory or gold, they wouldn't cut your hand off. They would cut your kids' hands off and shit like that. So there's all these kids getting their hands cut off. And if you see the movie Blood Diamond, that's kind of a theme there. But yeah, they were cutting off dudes' hands. They were, I'm sure, killing people en masse. They weren't even feeding them, right? Like these people, there were millions of them in the Congo, and they were just being treated as like disposable, like basically donkeys or cows, probably even worse than that. And so Marlow travels from England to Belgium to sign his contract because he got to go to Belgium first, right? He's got to get the approval. And while he's there, he goes to the office and there's like a lady knitting or something. I'm sure that's like symbolic of something. I don't fucking know. But while he's there, he's got to get checked on by a doctor, right? Oh, and also while he's there, he sees like this map of Africa. And if you don't know, in I think it was 1888, Africa was like divided between the powers of Europe, right? So France got a little bit, Germany got a little bit, Belgium got a little bit. Who else got a little bit? I think the Dutch, the Portuguese, it was the Spanish. They divided up Africa, and he's looking at this colonial map of Africa. And the point of this is to kind of show how detached Europe is from like their colonial ruling in Africa, right? Because it's colors on a map. It's doesn't show like the different ethnic groups, the different. It's just colors on a map, and so that's what this is supposed to represent a little bit. I think. I don't know. That's what SparkNote said. And I did read the SparkNote summary, which does leave out a few important things, and I'll try to bring those up where I can. And so this doctor, the thing when he's going to see the doctor is like the doctor's supposed to give him a physical, but even Marlow knows that it's not going to be a real physical, right? Because they just need someone to captain this boat. It's like they're so desperate they'll just take fucking anyone. It doesn't care. They don't care at all. This guy could have fucking rickets, scurvy, and this is the 1880s too. So everyone is malnourished. Everyone is constantly fucking filled with diseases, and so he knows that this isn't like a real checkup. And so the doctor does like a real quick ceremonial physical before measuring Marlow's skull. And this is skull measuring time. This is fucking Leonardo DiCaprio, Django Unchained. He busts out the thing and he's like, "How big is this dude's skull?" But and this is weird. So the doctor remarks that he never sees men come back from the Congo and says that the only changes like that they might experience aren't physical. So he measures the guy's skull. And I guess part of the reason he does that is to like prove that white people are better than black people. I guess that's like part of the thing, but it's like complete and utter nonsense. So I don't know. Maybe fucking Conrad's trying to make a point here. But he measures the skull and he's like, the changes won't be physical, and also I'll never see you again. So I don't know why the fuck he does that. I'm sure there's some kind of symbolism there. And so he's basically telling him, you're gonna die there, and you're also gonna go insane while you're there. And Marlow's still like, "Hey, fuck it, man. Fuck it, we ball." And so Marlow sails as a passenger on a French steamboat, which regularly like drops off soldiers and supplies along the coast of Africa. So as they're going down, they go, probably around Spain, and then they're going down the coast of Africa. And this is along the west coast of Africa. So if you can have an image of in your mind of that. So they're going down the coast, and like the French ship is like dropping off supplies and soldiers and shit. And they eventually come across another ship on the coast, which is like shelling the shit out of an unseen enemy. And the best comparison I could come up with this part in Apocalypse Now is they eventually, and this is pretty late in the movie Apocalypse Now, they come across this Dolong Bridge. And they're just like these guys there are like completely disconnected from everyone else, and they're fighting the Viet Cong, and every day the bridge gets destroyed and they rebuild the bridge, but that's not really the important part in this situation. It's so if you don't know, in Apocalypse Now, he's going upriver to find this guy called Colonel Kurtz, and they come across this bridge, and it's during the Vietnam War, and it's the middle of the night when they come across Do Lung Bridge, and these guys are just sitting in like these trenches, and they don't have a leader, right? The leader's been killed, and they're completely disconnected from like the army and the navy bases and shit, and they're just shooting the fuck out of the Viet Cong, and they can't see them at all. And so that's the best comparison I could come across for Apocalypse Now. And in the book, Heart of Darkness, they do say that like there's people in there and we're shooting at them, and so that's how I kind of came up with that comparison. I don't know if that's actually what it is. So they're just like these dudes are fucking crazy. They're shelling the shit, and he says the continent, and it's I don't know, something about him saying that they were shelling at just a blank continent. I don't know. It conjures up this image in my mind that I think is pretty sick. So they see that and they're like, fucking dudes are crazy, and they keep moving on. And Marla then, they get to like the mouth of a river. I don't know if it's the Congo River. They get to the mouth of some river, and Marlowe boards another vessel to go up the river and learns of a man who killed himself in the Congo interior. Just showing how wild shit can get up there. You know what I mean? You're like the doctor said, all you're gonna go fucking crazy if you go up in there. But he doesn't go up in there for too long. Maybe like a year is how long he spends going through the Congo and shit like that. And he's not like in like the heart of the Congo where the dude he's looking for is at. So Marlowe eventually reaches the outer station. And so there's three stations. We get the outer station, which is obviously the first one, the central station, and then the inner station, which is the one he's going to go to last. And so he sees like it's in complete disrepair, and that a cliff is being just blown the fuck up for no reason. And this is also maybe another comparison to the Do Lung Bridge, because it's like it gets destroyed every night and then they rebuild it every day. Maybe like that's the comparison. It's like this futile attempt to bring civilization, quote unquote, to this place. I don't know. And so while he's there at this what's it called, outer station, sorry, he sees a chain gang of African slaves led by another African dude who's like and he's like, whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's important to the story, but he sees this, and the dude who's leading the chain gang, the African dude, like he's just saluting white people. He's I don't know who the fuck my manager is. He's working at Lowe's and he's just saluting white people. And so he's like, it's fucking weird. And he eventually wanders off and he finds a group of dying slaves. And the men are dying like just on the ground. It's like this big group of them. I think he says that they're in like a ravine or something. It's just like a ravine full of dying African slaves. And he's like, God damn, dude, I'm racist as shit, but even this is fucking me up a little bit. This is pretty fucked up. And so he offers one man like a biscuit. I don't know if it's like a British biscuit where it's like a cookie or whatever, but he gives him a little bit of food. And he's like, this is fucked up. And he just leaves again. This is a common theme in the story where he sees something fucked up and he's just like, yeah, whatever, nothing I can do, and leaves, which is probably why people there go insane, because you just constantly see fucked up shit and there's nothing you can do about it. There's literally nothing you can do about it. So he gives him a little bit of food and he's like, it's fucked up. And then he wanders off and he finds the station's chief accountant. And I don't know if this is like one of our accountants or it's like just some nerd, but he finds this dude and it's a white guy and he's like very well dressed, right? He's like, he says his clothes are like unnaturally clean for the situation he's in. So I'm sure there's some kind of symbolism there. But anyway, the accountant tells him about Kurtz. And this is our guy. This is the guy who kind of the whole story revolves around eventually. A man whose station sends more ivory than all the rest combined. And this obviously, if you've seen Apocalypse Now, the guy's name is Colonel Kurtz. And they're kind of similar because they both go into like the interior of these countries that are like really hard to reach, and they kind of go crazy there. But they go crazy in like a really effective way, right? Like they embrace what the natives do there. And so Kurt's kind of embraced like the Viet Cong way a little bit to like fight the Viet Cong. I don't know. It's a long fucking story. If you haven't seen the movie, see it. And so the accountant wants to contact Kurtz, but he's scared that a letter would be intercepted by an undesirable elements within the next station. Right? So he's at the outer station, then there's the central station, and then there's the inner station, and he doesn't want to send a letter to Kurtz because he's like, the dudes at the inner station, or the central station, I don't know. They're fucking weird out there. They might fuck that shit up a little bit. And this is also a theme in Apocalypse Now where it's like within the jungle on this river, like everything is very disconnected. No one really trusts each other and shit like that. So that's where obviously some inspiration was drawn for the movie Apocalypse Now. And so Marlow sets out on a 200-mile land trek to the next station with 60 slaves and one white man. They arrive at the central station, which is in complete disrepair as well. Nothing's going well here, and this also happens in Apocalypse Now. It's like every base they get to doesn't have a fucking leader. No one knows what the fuck is going on. It just every everything's broken, dude. There's mud and water everywhere. It's like a fucking job site, dude. It's completely fucked up. And the white guy that he's traveling with constantly like faints and collapses. And fucking Marlowe's like, why the fuck are you out here? And the guy who keeps collapsing is like, because I want to be. It's a great adventure. He's just like, this dude is fucking retarded. Like, I'm retarded, but this dude is really retarded. And so they get to the central station. And the boat Marlowe is supposed to take has been like very badly damaged. The bottom part, right? Like the one part of the boat that you need to have in like perfect working condition has been severely damaged because the station's manager tried to take it out. And he thinks, this is him telling the story. And so in hindsight, he thinks maybe the boat was damaged on purpose so that he couldn't reach the inner station where Kurtz is at. Because as we'll find out, these dudes, they're not the dudes at the central station are not the biggest fan of Kurtz in the inner station, even though he sends more ivory than everyone else. And so the manager, the way he describes him, the way Marlowe describes him, he's just like an average man. Like there's nothing really that sticks out about him. He's not like a great leader. He doesn't talk with great eloquence, but he has a strong air of uneasiness. And he's like, Marlowe's basically like, that's all you need to be a leader and to like get people to listen to you. You just need to be like generally uneasy. Then people will listen to you. I don't know how true that is, but maybe out here that's true. And so Marlowe learns Kurtz may be ill while the manager praises him. And the manager's like, yeah, dude, Kurtz is really fucking good at his job. We don't like him the best out here, dude, but he's really fucking good at what he's doing, dude. He's like, one day Kurtz is going to be like the manager of the whole entire thing. And in Apocalypse Now, Colonel Kurtz is like, obviously he's a colonel in the army, and they're like, this dude could be a fucking general if he wanted to. Like, this dude, he knows how to lead men. He knows how to lead an army. He's really fucking good. He loves being in the army. And so that's a comparison between this and Apocalypse Now. But Kurtz may be ill. We don't really know. Like I keep saying, everything here is very disconnected, and so we don't really know. And one of the station's huts burns to the ground, and a slave is beaten nearly to death for it. And this is, so the thing burns to the ground, and like some of the native people like start dancing around it, and I guess they just pull one of those dudes out and they just like beat the shit out of him. And so this dude obviously gets the shit fucking beat out of him, and he's just like kind of chilling in the station, just like slowly dying and groaning. And no one's like, fuck, dude, maybe we went a little too far or something. They're just like, why is he groaning so loud? He'll like beat this dude to death, and he's like trying to recover to save his own life. And everyone, all the white people at least, are like, can this guy shut the fuck up? And so this just like shows the brutality and like the disconnect and like the psychopathy that colonialism has. I think, I don't know, once again, a complete guess. I try to Google all this shit because I find out that also no one else knows. So you can kind of just, if you can take your own guess too. And so he's there, the dude's groaning and shit, and Marlowe meets a brick maker who doesn't make bricks. Like, this is an important part in the story. This guy's a brick maker, but Marlowe's like, this guy does nothing. He doesn't, because he can't make bricks, right? Like, they don't have, he's like, he's missing something to make bricks. I don't know, straw or something? Like, Marlowe says that in the book. And so he basically just calls this guy out for being like a lazy piece of shit. Not to his face, but in the book. And he goes back to his notably nicer hut. He goes to the brickmaker's hut, which has a painting in it. And the painting is a blindfolded woman holding a torch, and I think there's like some native people around her or something, and that this is a picture or a painting that Kurtz made. And so they're in the hut, the brickmaker's hut, and the brickmaker talks about how Kurtz is a prodigy before confessing that he knows Marlowe has influence in the company, which Marlowe doesn't. So remember, Marlowe got the job captaining the steamboat ship to go into the inner station from his aunt. And so this guy's been like reading the letters, and he kind of found out that Marlowe has a little bit of sway, but he really doesn't. And at this point, Marlowe's been in the central station for like a few weeks or like a month maybe, just waiting for his boat to get repaired. And so Marlowe's like, fucking, I don't have any sway, but I'm not gonna tell this guy. I'm gonna try to use it to my advantage. And he leverages this false belief to get rivets for his damaged boat. He's like, "Yeah, dude, I do have a whole lot of sway in the company. If you give me some rivets to help me fix the boat, I'll do something about it." And the guy, like, I guess he realizes that Marlowe's taking advantage of him, and he swears at him and walks away. And Marlowe just laughs. Marlowe's like, "Fucking idiot, dude." And so, yeah, he's just chilling out there. And Marlowe thinks that he's gonna get the rivets, and so he goes and tells the ship foreman, I guess the guy who's like trying to help fix this boat, about this, and they both start dancing. And the way he describes this dude is it's very funny. So the foreman of the boat, the guy who's supposed to be fixing the boat, he describes him as like a dude with like a smooth ass head and a long like goatee basically that goes down to his waist, and he's shirtless and he's like pink as hell, and they just start dancing together. Him and this fucking leprechaun have a little jig in the middle of the Congo rainforest for some reason. And so they're chilling there a little bit, and then a group of men, I can't remember exactly what the expedition is called. It's like El Dorado something something. But this group of men on an expedition to the central Congo to like exploit it and get gold and shit. They come into the station and they talk about tearing gold from the bowels of the land. And so the dude leading this expedition, by the way, is the station manager's uncle. And so that's chapter 1. So he gets to the central station basically. His boat's not working, and in hindsight he thinks that the boat wasn't working on purpose. He thinks that the people in the central station fucked it up so that he couldn't get to Kurtz. Maybe not. It's weird, it's conspiratorial, it's all confusing. And this is another like theme of the story. It's just like ambiguity in general. It's really about moral ambiguity, but ambiguity in general. Like what's going on, I can't really tell. So now we're on to chapter 2. So Marlowe, he's just chilling, laying on like the wrecked boat, and he hears the station manager and his uncle talking about how Kurtz wants to turn the stations into beacons of morality and civilization. And they're talking shit about this. They're like, dude, you can't fucking do that out here. That's not how shit works. And this is a thing that happens in Apocalypse Now, where it's like Kurtz wants to fight the Vietnam War in a certain way, and like the brass, right? Like the leaders, the other generals, the colonels, the lieutenants are like, that's not how this shit's gonna work. That's not how this shit's gonna go. We gotta do it the way we're gonna fucking do it. So he's listening to these people kind of talk shit about Kurtz, and he's like, dude, why are you talking shit about Kurtz? It seems like he's doing a pretty good job. In his head, he says that. And so they just keep talking, and the manager, oh yeah, so this is a hilarious thing that Kurtz did. So Kurtz is coming down with the ivory to the central station, right? He's at the inner station, which is 300 miles away from the central station, and I'm sure the central station is what, 200 miles from the outer station. So this guy's like 500 miles at least away from civilization. And so Kurtz is like rowing down, and this is like an old story that the manager's telling his uncle about Kurtz. And so Kurtz like comes down almost to the central station, and then he just turns around. Just him though. He still delivers the ivory, and he delivers a letter to the manager telling him to stop sending incompetent men. So Kurtz, I can understand why the manager hates Kurtz a little bit, because Kurtz is probably sending his best dudes up to the inner station. Or not Kurtz, the manager is sending his best dudes up to the inner station to like try and impress Kurtz. And Kurtz like is just talking shit. But he also didn't face him. That's the other thing. He came almost to the central station and then turned around. So he's talking shit from afar. He's like, this dude could probably beat my ass one-on-one, so I'm gonna talk shit, and then I'm just gonna talk shit in a letter. And so the central manager, he admires Kurtz in a way, but he really doesn't fuck with the guy. And so finally, the manager, he's still talking to his uncle. He talks about a traitor who's been giving him trouble, the Russian traitor. And so the uncle tells him to hang the traitor, saying no one can challenge his authority out here. He's like, dude, we're in the middle of the Congo. We've been cutting hands off for like a decade now. No one's going to do anything about it. Just kill the fucking guy, all right? There's no civilization. There's no courts out here. You can just kill the guy. And so this is funny. Marlowe, right, he's laying in the boat so they can't see him, and he jumps up, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? The dudes like look at each other, and then they walk away. So Marlowe's constantly fucking with everyone. All right. So then a few months go by, and Marlowe's boat is ready to go. They got it. Let's fucking go. Who's ready to leave this place? The boat has, and so they're getting ready to leave. The boat has Marlowe, the manager, some pilgrims, quote unquote, which are just like white dudes, I guess, from the station who are trying to go and see what's up with Kurtz, and then a crew of, once again, quote unquote, savage cannibals. And these dudes, we'll find out later, they're not really cannibals and they're not really savages. They're just kind of like chill dudes. They don't really, they're pretty nice. They work pretty hard on the boat. They know what they're doing. Uh, it's funny the way he describes them as we'll get on here a little bit. Actually, I don't think I wrote that down, so I'll say it now. So I guess on steamboats, like there's this one particular part of the engine that you have to watch for the water level. And the way Kurtz describes it is, so there's this dude, right, one of the quote unquote savage cannibals who watches the thing, and Kurtz is like, yeah, he probably thinks there's a spirit or something in there, and that if he doesn't, satisfy it, the whole thing's gonna blow up and it's gonna kill him. But it's like that's just Marlow completely speculating as to what this dude is thinking. This dude is probably just like, yeah, no, I know how this thing works. I know there's not a spirit in there. And so anyway, they're going down along the river, and the forest along the river is like completely impenetrable, right? Like there's like some like clear patches where there's like maybe some villages and shit, but like you can't see the villages even like through the trees. Like it's so thick. It's basically just a river surrounded by like the most dense jungle on earth. And Marlowe hears the tribe's drums like at night. He hears the people like who live in the forest like playing their drums, doing their chants, shit like that. And eventually Marlowe, he kind of admits that he feels like a kinship with like the tribes in the forest, but he doesn't worry about it, dude. He's got a fucking boat to captain, all right? He doesn't have time for thinking about drums and tribes and shit like that. Although he does, he's like, dude, I kind of fuck with these guys a little bit heavy. And this is where you can kind of see him turning into Kurtz, because spoiler alert, Kurtz, like I said, he kind of adopts like the tribal way, and he like lives with these tribal people, and he like really understands them well, and he understands like they know what the fuck is going on here. And so Marlowe's kind of like slipping into that mindset, which everyone else thinks is like completely insane, but it's pretty rational, right? Like these people that have been living here, these tribes that have been living here for, I mean, maybe tens of thousands of years, they know what the fuck is going on, but the Europeans are like, no, they're just savage brutes. And so 50 miles from Kurtz's station, the voyage finds a hut with a note that says, "Wood for you, hurry up, approach cautiously." And they also in this hut, they find a book with cipher writing in the margins. And this will come back a little bit. So remember, there's a book that has cipher writing in the margins. And I can't remember if the book is by Kurtz. I think it might be by Kurtz. And so the manager concludes that the man who left the note was the Russian trader. And Marlowe heard the manager complain about. He's like, the manager fucking hates this guy too. And I don't blame him. Well, once we get to him, you'll understand why the manager hates him. This guy is a little bitch, dude. He's just a little fucking, he's a little butt boy beta male bitch. And so I can't blame the manager for complaining about him. He is pretty fucking annoying. And so eventually they keep going upriver, and they get 8 miles from Kurtz, and it's nighttime. And Marlowe's like, come on, let's just keep fucking going. We got to get there. But the manager's like, no, dude, it's the middle of the night. We have no idea like what this river looks like. We can't navigate in the dark here. If we navigate in the dark, we might run onto the ground and like get attacked by natives. We got to fucking stop here. And so Marlowe's like, all right, we can stop here. And they stay there for the night. And so they stay there for the night. And the next morning is filled with like a super like heavy, you can't see through the fog. Like it's just a white fog that covers everything, and it like rises and then lowers abruptly. And so it's going like up and down. Like so you get like 2 minutes where you can see shit, and then it goes down. And once again, they can't navigate if they can't see what's going on here. This isn't like a well-charted river where they can like look at the map and like the compass and like, I don't know, use a sextant or whatever the fuck they have going on. They can't use a protractor to navigate this thing. They need to be able to see it. And so they kind of have to stay here in the fog, even though it is morning time and there's light and shit. So from the fog, they hear a scream slash holler from the natives. And this is, they, Marlowe thinks it's like a cry of like sadness or like mourning or sorrow or whatever. And this is this is a pretty funny part. And so the cannibal savage, quote unquote, leader, this guy, he, this might lend to him being a cannibal a little bit. He tells Marlowe that he wants to eat the men in the fog, and Marlowe realizes that the tribesmen on board, like the dudes who are helping him, he says that these dudes do all the work because the steamship, it's basically been destroyed at this point. So these dudes are like pushing this thing fucking along. They're like the only ones doing anything. And Marlowe realizes that these guys have had nothing to eat, probably for like weeks. Like literal weeks they have had nothing to eat because the pilgrims threw all their food overboard. The pilgrims, just the tribes people's food. So the tribes people brought hippo meat, and I guess it was going like a little bit rancid, and so the pilgrims just threw it all overboard. And so, and Marlowe's like, these guys haven't fucking eaten in like months. He's like, or like weeks or whatever. And he's like, dude, I don't know if I would be able to like not eat a person after like weeks of not eating. He's like, hunger like takes over like everything in your body, right? He's like, you forget about morality. You forget about like even like your own self-preservation when you're that hungry. You just want to fucking like eat something. Even if it's a dude, you're still going to eat him. And he's like, yeah, dude, I would not have been able to stop myself from eating people. And this is kind of a moment where he realizes like these people, they're, he he still says the N-word after this, but he's like, these guys are solid dudes. Like they haven't eaten us yet, even though they have no reason not to. They still haven't eaten us. So they might be like moral people, but the dude does also say that he wants to eat the people in the fog. So I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like white meat. Maybe that's it. Maybe this guy's just like, I'm not eating fucking honky meat. And so eventually the fog lifts and the boat travels for about a mile and a half before the natives on the shore attack it. And so they're hitting it with like arrows, spears, whatever the fuck they got, just attacking this boat. And Marlow's driver, who is like a native dude, one of the savage cannibals, quote unquote, is killed in the skirmish, and Marlow watches him as he dies. And so these dudes they're attacking the boat, right? The natives are throwing their spears and their arrows and shit, and all the white dudes on board start like grabbing their rifles and like shooting into the fucking forest just completely blindly. And at that point, this is like the 1800s, right? Like the late 1800s. There's like smoke filling the air, and so they can't even see. They couldn't see what they were shooting at in the first place, but now especially they can't see what the fuck is going on. And Marlow watches as his driver dies with like a spear in his side or something like that. And so Marlowe's like pretty upset by this. He doesn't want to admit it. He really doesn't want to be like, dude, this fucking black guy, like I fuck with him. I fuck with this guy heavy. Like he's been driving my boat. He's been doing good. He doesn't like say it out loud, but he does throw his new shoes, which were soaked in the man's blood, overboard, and remarks that he thought Kurtz was dead at this point. He's like, all right, there's no way the natives would be attacking us if Kurtz was still alive, right? He thinks that if Kurtz was still alive, he'd like have like a hold on these guys. He'd have them in like chains or whatever, like getting ivory for him. And so he thinks Kurtz is dead at this point. And also, I guess another important point is Kurtz has a fiance in Europe, and Marlowe's like, that doesn't really fucking matter, but the way he talks about her does matter. And so he has this book by Kurtz with like the cipher writing in the margins, remember? And so Kurtz talks about everything, literally everything, like he owns/controlled it, right? So an example, he calls it my jungle, my station, my ivory, my river, my fiance, shit like that. Like he owns it, he controls it, it's all his. It doesn't have its own, self-determination or its own whatever. And he's like, fucking Kurtz, this dude is wild. He thinks he owns everything. And Kurtz is like a direct allegory for colonialism in this situation, where it's like he just thinks he controls everything. He knows what the fuck is going on all the time. He thinks he's going to do his shit his own way. And like the rest of the world disapproves of it. So Kurtz is a direct allegory for colonialism. If you haven't figured that out yet, which I kind of didn't, I really didn't. I was like, what the fuck? There's something going on here. I don't know exactly what it is. So I'll just tell you straight up, Kurtz is an allegory for colonialism. And so I guess they keep going on. Maybe they're still stopped at this point. I can't remember. But Marlow throws the driver overboard to the protest of both the pilgrims and the cannibals. And he says he thinks the pilgrims are like, this dude should have been given a proper burial. All right, he's the dude. He's been driving the boat. I don't care what color his skin is. He's like a solid dude. We should have buried him properly. But he thinks that like the other tribesmen on board are just upset that they lost a meal. But this is, once again, this is just Marlow completely speculating. These dudes were probably equally upset as the pilgrims that they didn't, give this guy his rights. But once again, Marlow cares about this guy so deeply. He's like, this is really his only friend on board. And so he just throws him overboard to like get it out of his mind. He's like, fuck it, he's dead. I don't care. He throws him overboard. And so, all right, they keep going on. Marlow and everyone else is convinced that Kurtz is dead and the station is destroyed. They're like, dude, there's no way those natives would have attacked us if Kurtz was still alive. Kurtz would have fucking killed all those guys immediately. This dude's a beast. He would have killed those guys. There's no way they would have attacked us. And also at this point, the pilgrims, they brag about how well they fended off the attack. And Marlow's like, oh yeah, you fended it off real well. He says something, he's like, "Yeah, you blew a whole lot of smoke. You did a good one on that one." It's like, you guys didn't do anything. These guys attacked us, and you just shot blindly into the jungle. The only dude who did anything, by the way, was the driver. So the driver, he saw the attack, and he grabbed a gun, and he, like, shot one of the dudes in the forest. And the way they drove off the people wasn't that they, like, killed them or, like, that they shot enough of them. It's that Marlow blew the steam whistle. That's all it was. That's all. It's the only reason they got driven off. And these pilgrims are like bragging about how well they fended off the attack. And Marlowe's having none of it, dude. He's having none of it. And so suddenly the station comes into view. Fuck, dude, we thought it was destroyed. It's here. What the fuck is going on? And the Russian trader is standing there. The little bitch butt boy that the manager was complaining about is standing there. And so Marlow and the trader, so they see the station, they're like, holy fuck, the station's still here. And so they pull up to it, and Marlow and the Russian trader go on board while the rest go to find Kurt. They're like, all right, this fucking Kurt's guy, we've had enough of him, dude. He sends a fuck ton of ivory, but he's a little fucking mean bitch that's constantly insulting me. We're gonna go find him and drag him out of this jungle. And also the natives attacked us, dude. That's like the one thing Kurtz is supposed to be stopping, and he can't fucking do it. So the rest of the people, they go out to look for Kurtz while Marlow and the Russian trader goes on board. And the trader says that the natives mean no harm unconvincingly. Like, he keeps saying it. Like, every other word that he's talking to Marlow, he's like, no, the natives are like completely chill. They don't mean any harm, dude. They don't mean any harm. And it's like, I think they mean harm, dude. They killed one of our guys. They killed my best friend on board. I'll never call him my best friend, but they fucking totally killed him, dude. And Marlow gives him the book, whose cipher notes are actually Russian. And this is another thing that I think is supposed to show, like, how Europe kind of views these people as savages, when in reality they don't understand, like, their traditions and their culture and shit like that. And so I think this is supposed to be like a kind of an example of that Marlow experiences, right? Like, he sees this writing and he's like, "Oh, this has to be English. It has to just be a cipher version of English," when in reality it's just a different language completely. And so I think that's kind of supposed to be a comparison that Joseph Conrad is drawing. And so he's talking to the trader, and the trader talks about how Kurtz is like a genius that enlarged his mind. Oh, and by the way, the trader there's a character in Apocalypse Now, if you've seen it, he's the photojournalist, right? And the photojournalist is like a one of one of the Russian trader in this book. And the trader's just like, dude, he's a fucking genius. He knows what's going on. He can talk about literally anything. He can talk for hours on end. And Marlow, he kind of agrees with him a little bit because he's reading this thing that Kurtz wrote, and he's like, yeah, Kurtz is like a really smart dude. Like, he knows what the fuck is going on, but he does think like that this Russian trader is a little butt boy, and he is, dude. He is just like Kurtz's little fucking butt boy, and he's like, he's so smart. He knows everything. He could talk about philosophy and art. And he's kind of like, yeah, this guy's a little bitch boy. And that's also what the photojournalist does in Apocalypse Now. And that's chapter 2. So chapter 2, they leave the thing, they get attacked by natives, and they think Kurtz is dead. Turns out Kurtz is alive, and they reach the central station. So now we're on to chapter 3. So chapter 3, the trader just keeps talking about how great Kurtz is and how they have lots of ups and downs. He's like, yeah, me and Kurtz were like best friends, but like sometimes he like yells at me and is mean to me, but like he's a really cool dude. Like, he's really nice to me, but like sometimes he's hard on me, but like he means to do it on purpose because he's trying to like improve me. So he's just like a complete butt boy. He's like excusing everything that Kurtz does. I don't know if this is supposed to be an allegory for something. Maybe it's just like people blindly agreeing with people who they think are smarter than them. Maybe that's what it's like supposed to be like representing. I have no fucking idea. So eventually, this fucking little butt boy is just talking fucking Marlow's ear off about how great Kurtz is, and the party returns with Kurtz, who is very ill. Like, they say they have him in a stretcher. And this is, I don't remember when he describes Kurtz, but I'll just talk about him now. Kurtz is 7 feet tall. He's 7 feet tall. He's like bone thin, and his head is like bald and shiny in like the middle of the forest. And this is also the way, it's not really the way Kurtz is in Apocalypse Now, but he is bald as shit in Apocalypse Now. One thing you got to know about Kurtz in the book, though, he's very tall, he's very thin, and he's balder than a motherfucker, dude. He's got a Terry Crews. He's got a milk dud for a head. This guy's got a smooth ass head. And so the party tries to take Kurtz on board, but the local people step in. Like, the local tribesmen that are around, they're like, no, dude, you can't take Kurtz from us. Please, we need Kurtz. No. Don't take Kurtz from me. I love Kurtz so much. But Kurtz is like, guys, chill the fuck out, dude. I'm clearly about to die, dude. I'm very sick. I need to go get some actual fucking medicine, dude. You can't keep waving turtle shells over me and going, hoya, hoya, hoya. That's not gonna fix me, dude. I need actual medicine. And so he tells the people to fuck off. And another thing about Kurtz is he does speak like I I think multiple local languages. All right. And so now they're on board. Kurtz is on board, and Marlow's like looking out as they're leaving. Like they're getting ready to leave. The boat, it's chugga 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 chugga. The steam engine's getting going, and Marlow sees a native woman on the shore dressed in expensive ornate jewelry. And the Russian trader's like, "Yeah, dude, that's his side bitch." And you got to remember, Kurtz has a fiance back in where's he from? I think he's maybe Denmark, Germany, something like that. I don't know. And but anyway, the Russian trader's like, yeah, dude, that's his side bitch. And even Marlow's like, yeah, dude, I can't blame him for that when she's so as racist as Marlow is. He's like, yeah, dude, she's really fucking hot. And it says that she's dressed in like several elephant tusks worth of jewelry. And I guess they use that as like a money comparison, right? Like how we would be like, yeah, he's got a fucking like house on his neck when you're describing a rapper's chain or something like that. And so this bitch is decked the fuck out. She's hot as fuck. And um and fucking Marlow's like, yeah, if she tried to come on board though, I'd totally kill her. I don't know why. Maybe he thinks that like she could convince Kurtz to stay there, but he's like, if she came on board, I would totally kill her. And another thing about the station is that I can't remember if it's Kurt's house in particular, but fucking someone's house or someone's like hut, village, some building is surrounded by heads on stakes, and someone goes, "That's totally fucking savage." That might be this part. So the manager is talking about Kurtz, and he accuses him of, or wait, no. So the manager tells Marlow that Kurtz is like insane and a savage, and Marlow calls the manager a hypocrite. But what happens before this is the manager is he was talking to Kurtz a little bit, and then Kurtz like cusses him out and like tells him to fuck off. And Kurtz tells the manager that he's only there for the ivory, like that he doesn't care about Kurtz's well being. And it's like, yeah, dude, obviously I don't care. Like the manager is also low key jealous of Kurtz because like I was gonna be the manager, I was gonna get promoted or whatever, and then Kurtz came in and fucked all this shit up by being better than me. But also back to the head thing. So Marlow sees like the heads and like someone's like, yo, dude, that's fucked up. And Marlow goes, we kill these people all the time. What difference does it make if we put the heads on stakes or not? Like it's the people are still fucking dead. It doesn't matter at all that he put the heads on stakes. But Marlow's kind of coming into Kurtz's point of view. He's like, yo, dude, Kurtz knows what the fuck is going on out here. Stop being a hypocrite, dude. You killed these people as well. You just shut the fuck up. Fuck off, man. Marlow's had enough of it, dude. He's been walking and chilling on boats for days. Oh, and also, by the way, the boat's not leaving. The boat, they have Kurtz on board, and like they're getting ready to leave, but it's nighttime, so they're leaving the next day. And so later in the night, Marlow goes to see Kurtz. He's like, I gotta fucking talk to this dude. Everyone, I'm starting to agree with it a little bit. I've never really met the guy before, but like, I want to see what the fuck is going on with him. And so he goes to see where Kurtz is on the boat, but he's gone. And so he's like, what the fuck? Where's Kurtz at? And so he leaves the boat and he finds Kurtz. And by the way, Kurtz is very fucking sick. He finds Kurtz like crawling on all fours through the tall grass. And also, what's going on at this time is like the natives are having a big old bonfire, dude. They're having some bush apples. You know what I mean? Some Coors Light. They're roasting marshmallows. They're making s'mores and shit, playing guitar, telling spooky stories. No, they're dancing around this big old fire. And he like sees the fire and he sees like these silhouettes of like the shaman or like the chiefs or whatever wearing like antelope skins, and they have like horns coming out of their head and shit like that. And he's like, what the fuck is going on? It's the middle of the night, and it's just fucking freaky out there. And he's eventually like, Kurtz, we gotta go back to the ship. You're sick as shit, dude. We gotta get you back to the mainland. You're gonna get promoted anyway. Shit's gonna go well for you. And Kurtz is like, yeah, all right, dude. I'm not gonna fight you about this. And he goes back on board with Marlow. And so, as the ship is leaving, the natives surround the ship. They're like, no, dude, you're not gonna take Kurtz from us. We love Kurtz so fucking much, dude. No, you can't have him. He's ours, dude. He's ours. We love Kurtz. And Marlowe's like, all right, dude, I can't. Marlow is so done, and I can't blame him. Marlow's just done with everything. Hashtag, I'm so done. He's a wine mom. He just wants to go home and have his Xanax and fucking just ignore his kids. That's what Marlow wants to do at this point. And so he's like, he just blows the whistle again, which makes everyone fuck off. But Kurtz's mistress, even after the whistle blows, she stays, and the other pilgrims open fire on her. but we don't know exactly what happens because remember, this is 1800s time, and so the smoke completely blocks the view. So either she's dead or she's not. Doesn't really matter. Kurtz is never going to go back. Marlow's never going to go back. Spoiler alert. And so, yeah, they're chugging along, and the next day, Marlow hears Kurtz talk, but he's like, "Damn, dude, this guy's gay as hell, dude." He realizes that like Kurt's like all of his philosophy and shit is really only related to his own legacy and fame, and this is another like example of Kurtz being an allegory for colonialism. Like people back in the day, and even now, they'll like justify colonialism by being like, "No, we're helping these people," but he realizes that like it's all just about him. It's all about the country that's doing the colonialism, not about the people who like actually live there and shit like that. And Marlowe realizes that, and he's like, "God damn, Kurtz is gay as hell, dude." Hey, happens to the best of us, Marlowe. All right. Sometimes you're like, "Dude, this guy's so fucking, he's sick as hell," and you realize he's just a gay little nerd. Dude, that happened to me with Socrates. So yeah, I'm not blaming Marlowe for that. It happens to the best of us. Everyone falls into that pitfall. Marlo's like, "All right, dude, I just got to get this thing out of here. We've been here for like, I've been in the fucking Congo for a year now. I gotta get out of here, dude. I can't keep dealing with this shit." And so they're chugging along back to the mainland. They're like, "Let's get out of here." I'm sure it's quicker. Maybe they were going upriver before, and now they're like going with the stream a little bit. And so they're returning back to like the outer stations. And Kurtz finally dies. He's been sick as hell. He's thin as hell. He's 7 feet tall. Dude, being 7 foot tall in the 1800s, you'd assume you'd die way earlier than this. So it's credit to Kurtz that he made it this far. Kurtz finally dies, and his last words are, "The horror. The horror." I don't know. It's supposed to be referring to something. I don't know exactly what it's referring to, but that's basically the end of the story. Eventually, Marlowe does go back to Europe, and he kind of like comforts Kurtz's fiance. He's like, "Yeah, Kurtz, the reason he left the Congo was so that he could come like talk to you again and like be with you, even though that's complete bullshit. He was like fucking this hot ass black chick in the Congo." But Marlowe tells her, he's like, "Dude, it's Kurtz. He was looking for you. All right, he wanted to be with you. You're hot as hell. There's definitely not a black chick there with a bunch of jewelry that Kurtz gave her. That is fucking on the side. She's definitely not hotter than you. She fucks with you heavy." So he makes it back out, and that's the end of the story. Kurtz dies. Colonialism eventually does die as well, and that's the end of it. And yeah, and so I got this thing that I drew up about specific examples of like comparison between themes of Apocalypse Now and Kurtz, or Apocalypse Now and Heart of Darkness, sorry. And so Marlowe begins on the themes recalling his journey, and this goes back to the beginning of Apocalypse Now, where Willard, who is Marlowe's equivalent in Apocalypse Now, is in Saigon, like disoriented in his hotel room. They're both like reflecting on like what's going on with the war and all that shit. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too deeply into it. Whatever. If you've seen Apocalypse Now, and if you've heard this story, and I'll leave a link to the actual story, you can see how similar they are. You can kind of draw your own comparisons here and there where you want. It's not a one of one, but it's pretty similar. And yeah, that's Heart of Darkness. It's pretty good. I listened to this other book the other day when I've been working for my dad, building frames for his beehives and shit like that. And the story I listened to is just, I'm just listening to whatever free audiobooks I can. I've heard the name Ayn Rand before, and if you don't know, she's like a Russian author from like the Soviet times. And I listened to her book called The Anthem. In this book, it's supposed to be like a critique of communism, right? Like everyone in the book, no one in the book has any names. They're all called like Liberty 53212 or like Independence, 687 or whatever like that. And it reminded me so much of of those Divergent books, if you've ever heard of those, which are just like the corniest, like every trope, every like cliche that exists in dystopian novels is in Divergent. And this is also, it's also in Ayn Rand's book, The Anthem. But she wrote this book in 1938, so I think she just wrote the best one, and everyone else copied her. And yeah, I don't know. That's all I've got for this episode. Longer than the other episodes have been. We're at 53 minutes. Hope you have a good day, good week, good year, good life. Hope the story wasn't too incoherent, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. I might do an episode in between now and then, but I'll see you guys on Thursday. All right, peace out.